Troglodyte warning. Today I have an insane clip from Nigel Farage where he cracks under basic scrutiny and makes a really crazy admission at the end. Make sure you watch to the final minutes because what he says is absolutely mask off. He really shows who the man is, and it might come to bite his arse one day. Probably not, but maybe. Let's get straight into it.
Mr. Candy, you were a Conservative Party member and donor from 2009 to now. Between 2020 and 2020, you donated £270,000 to the Conservatives. Do you intend to donate similar amounts to Reform before the general election, the next one?
No, I've mentioned this morning I will donate a seven-figure sum to Reform.
So over £1 million?
Over £1 million. And I will also raise Reform more money than it's ever been raised for a political party in this country.
And Elon Musk said on X, on the announcement of your appointment, that this was, quote, interesting.
Yes.
Are you going to try and raise funds from him? And have either of you had conversations with Elon Musk or his team about donations?
We've had no conversations yet regarding donations. Elon's obviously very close to President Trump. Nigel's also super close to President Trump. As you know, he helped, via my wife, do the largest Republican fundraiser ever done outside of America. If Elon wants to give and it can be given legally, then of course Reform would be very interested in that.
Because Nigel Farage, there was talk about an...
And this just shows, I'm sorry, Reform are just the Conservatives, just more racist. It's the same business interests. They represent the same billionaire class, Elon Musk, Trump. It's the same old, same old. It's just slightly more racist. That's it. But, you know, people see them as different somehow.
£80 million donation from Elon Musk.
A Sunday newspaper story without any basis of fact. Now, let's be clear. Elon Musk is very supportive of what Reform is trying to do, supportive of me personally, and we've got good connections with him. Nick's got good connections with him as well.
He's messaged me this morning.
But there you are. So
He's messaged you this morning.
Yeah, we're speaking, so probably later
And what
today.
did he say?
I cannot discuss that.
But he messaged you
So
directly.
yeah,
today.
we're speaking directly.
So he's giving us political support. We have, at this stage, neither solicited or been offered donations.
OK. Fundraising, Nick Candy has joined the party, a big coup for you. Professionalisation of the party. You have talked about the need to professionalise. You've talked about having over 100,000 members. There were issues in the general election. You're on record saying you were dismayed by reprehensible, they're your words, racist comments from campaigners and homophobic comments by one of your members of staff. Did it hurt you in the campaign?
Hugely. Hugely. I mean, don't forget, I've been out of the picture for a couple of years. Reform was a very, very small party. Full credit to Richard Tice for keeping it going, but it wasn't really in a fit state to fight a snap general election. That's all changed. We are now vetting candidates for the English County Council elections. I'll bet you to a standard that no other party for local elections ever has done. That is happening. We're forming branches up and down the country. I've brought in an entrepreneurial chairman in the shape of Zia Youssef to set the thing on the right footing. I've now got a professional in to help us raise money. We are going places. In fact, I'll go further. I genuinely think we're at that moment where there could be a genuine political revolution in this country.
And Nigel Farage, you talk about cleaning up Reform as a big part of what you're doing. You've just explained that. And I want to ask you about James McMurdoch, the Reform MP for South Basildon and East Thurrock. He was jailed in 2006 for assaulting his girlfriend. You have said the vetting wasn't as it should be. Under your plans for professionalisation, how would you deal with a case like Mr McMurdoch in the future?
Let's be clear, he went to a Young Offenders Institute, right?
For 21 days.
He was a teenager and he did something he shouldn't have done. He was out of control. He was out of control. That conviction is now spent.
Yes.
It is a spent conviction.
So he's not answering a question. How's he going to deal with it? It's spent. It's all in the past. It doesn't matter, essentially. That's what he's saying.
Would you deal with it in the future? That's my question.
That conviction is now spent. And from that very unpromising start in life, he went on, got himself qualified.
The point is, the question is
you're not listening. You're not listening.
I am listening to you.
He went on.
All right,
he
please.
went on from that. He got qualified. He became a bond trader in the City of London. He's happily married with his fifth child.
And there it is. He's a bond trader. Different rules for the people at the top. He talks about two-tier justice system. We really have that. For the people at the top, the millionaires, like James McMurdoch, it's all in the past. Spent conviction, it's irrelevant. But for everyone else, if you worked in McDonald's, you assaulted someone, you lied about it on your CV, you'd be gone. You'd be out the door quicker than you could say Big Mac. But for him, different rules. And that's why we do have a two-tier justice system in this country, because he doesn't care about what he's done.
On the way, and he's now become a member of Parliament. If in a country that believes in Christian forgiveness, he is not a good example to go.
He doesn't believe about Christian forgiveness. Not at all. He applies it to him because he's wealthy, he's white. But to other people, there's a deep irony here that any refugee or immigrant or asylum seeker that commits crime, oh, they've got to go. They're obsessed with crime. They're always looking for the crime statistics. They're obsessed with it. But when it's one of their own, oh, it's fine. It's all in the past. Yeah, so what if he beat his ex-girlfriend? Oh, God, get over it. But this is the hypocrisy. It just proves that he doesn't care about crime, only when brown people do it.
Young tearaways, I don't know
So
what is.
the question is how would you deal with
You can't
that
answer
in the
it.
future?
You
So if
can't
someone has
answer
a
this question.
conviction for domestic violence or assault,
he doesn't care.
if the conviction is spent, they can still be a councillor and member of the party.
Well, if we think they're good enough, if we think they've genuinely, decided that the past was awful. Honestly,
What? What's he even say that? If they're good enough, that's it. If they're, a stock trader, hedge fund manager, bond trader, that's all that matters. If they're wealthy, that's all that matters. We'll take anybody as long as they have the interest of the business class at the forefront. That's all that matters to Nigel Farage. And it's true. He's shown his true colours here. He's kind of going mask off, like, it doesn't matter. But if this is any other party, they'd be like holier than thou, like, how dare he? How dare they? And rightly so. I'd agree with them, yeah. He's got to go. But for him, nah, it's irrelevant.
tell you what, there are young offenders institutes today full of people. If half of them turned out as well as James McMurdoch, we'd be a better country. Do you believe?
I.e. a bond trader. That's it. That's the only value he has. If they went on to become, they could become a builder, a mechanic. It's because he has that status that for him it's different. And it is that two-tier justice system that we have.
Believe in Christian forgiveness?
Everyone believes in redemption. Everyone should have second
Right.
chances.
Is he not a very good example?
Nigel, that is not the question I'm asking. What I'm saying is there is a discrepancy here.
I
between
actually love this talking point because he doesn't. And that's the irony. He really doesn't. Because Christian forgiveness means for everybody, not just white people. It's insane.
the court documents said and what James has said.
It is a
Is
spent
that not
conviction.
an issue for constituents? That's the point, that there
You
isn't
go and knock on their
transparency.
doors. You go and knock on their doors, and I'll bet you, in that part of Essex,
He only won by
where there are
98
many,
votes, and there might have been people, particularly
I'll bet
women, that
you-
might have suffered domestic abuse
True,
or
that
violence
is-
I'll
or
bet you
assault
there are
that might be
many,
uncomfortable with that.
I'll
Do you
bet
take
you-
the point?
No, I don't take the point.
Of course he
because
doesn't. He doesn't care.
I'll bet you there are many young tearaways right now in Basel and elsewhere who are being sent off to young offenders institutes who may well go on to lives of repetitive crime, maybe even violent crime. This is an example of a human being who's picked himself up from a terrible situation and made a big success of
But
his
in
life.
terms of being a MP and representing
But
constituents,
he doesn't want to solve that repetitive crime. If someone does fall into crime, he just writes them off. Oh, they're criminals. But for someone to become a successful millionaire, oh well, we can't hold them account for their actions, for their lies about the extent to how much he beat his ex-girlfriend. Different rules for different people.
my point here is not
No,
what happened. My point
well-
is that there is a discrepancy.
Right. Well,
He
I haven't
said
seen
I
it.
pushed
believe
her
you.
over.
I believe you. I
But
haven't
that's
seen the
the court
discrepancy.
document.
It's a spent
Well, what did he
conviction.
tell you?
See, he doesn't care. Again, proof that he doesn't care. If he cared about this, he'd look at the court documents and go, right, let's look at what the court found, the evidence, and see what happened, and then make a decision from there. He doesn't care. It's irrelevant to him that he's beat his girlfriend. All that matters is that he's a successful businessman. He's wealthy. Come on board. You're ideologically aligned to me. Come on board. That's it. He has no values. He's proven it. He's saying a lot here, but people won't. People just say, "Oh, she's being mean to him." She's asking basic questions. No, these are the real questions.
End
he'd
of
done.
conversation.
Well, what did he say he'd
Spent
done
conviction,
to you?
end of conversation.
His constituents.
I tell you what, we're busy, right? We're building a new political party. You are talking about a spent conviction from 20 years ago. What's happened is happened. Whether there are discrepancies or not, I don't know. What I know is he's a fine young
don't you
man
know?
who's turned out really very, very well.
But for the
He's a serving
victim,
member of Parliament.
for him to imply that she was pushed over
I
when
don't
the
know.
court
How has he turned out well, though? If he's lied about a spent conviction, how is that turning out well? How is that? That's lying about a spent conviction. You've got to go. It's that simple, really.
document says
I
he
don't
kicked her,
know.
that's difficult for the victim, isn't
I'll
it?
believe anything you say.
See,
It's not what I say.
I believe anything you say. He doesn't care. He's getting upset. Oh, how dare you scrutinise our violent, thuggish MPs? How dare you? I believe anything you say. He doesn't care.
It's what the court
I don't
document
know.
says.
I haven't read
It's
them.
not what I said. It's a
I
court
don't know. It's 20 years
document.
ago.
Why not?
And
Why
this,
have
is
you not
why,
read it?
and this is why, mainstream media like you are losing the affections of the British public.
What? Because we're asking basic questions about MPs that have beaten their ex-girlfriends. No, that's crazy. The fact that he can't stand basic scrutinism, and it's kind of scrutiny, sorry, and it's just insane. It's insane.
Let's worry about where we are today. Let's worry about where the country's going. Let's worry about the fact we're getting poorer. Let's worry about the fact that our communities are breaking down, that people are scared to walk on the streets of London wearing
That
a watch
wasn't my
or
question.
jewelry.
That's so ironic. Let's talk about crime. When one of my MPs did crime, come on, the lack of self-awareness, it's astonishing. But that's what we're talking about. How can we have people like this who represent, constituents, and then be like, oh, we're going to get rid of crime, but we've got a criminal. How do you deal with this? The lack of...
Question.
No,
Mike,
no, I know.
What
and
I'm
you're
asking
talking,
you...
You're talking about an inside Westminster story that you want to talk about.
If you want to professionalise the party, then these are questions people are going to ask. And if it was another political party and this has happened, you would expect me to ask them as well.
I have not heard you ask a single Labour minister about the case where a man was on the ground in Runcorn a few weeks ago and punched 5 times on the ground.
Has he not been suspended for that?
Yes, he
I
has.
thought he had the whip suspended.
Still a member of Parliament.
Have you? But you
Still a
didn't-
member of Parliament.
But he has had the whip suspended, and they are investigating it.
We'll see.
Whereas what you're saying here is that the court documents are irrelevant. So
I'm saying a spent conviction is irrelevant. You're quite right.
And there it is. He goes mask off. A spent conviction for domestic violence that he lied about is irrelevant. That's it. How insane is that? Because if it was anyone else let's say Keir Starmer did that 20 years ago and he lied about it. Rightly so, he'd go. But for them, different rules. Oh, he's a wealthy man. He's a wealthy man. Why are you asking questions? This is why people don't trust mainstream media, because you're asking questions about people we like. It's pathetic. He's mask off. It's irrelevant to him. What? I'm sorry. If he says this about domestic violence, what other crime would be irrelevant? Honestly, I really think he doesn't care. So, comment below. Is it irrelevant? Is a spent conviction of domestic violence and lying about it, is it irrelevant for an MP? I don't think it is. Maybe I'm crazy, but tell me in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.